family. Welcome to Real Life, Real Talk. First, I just want to apologize for the episode being late. But in true nature form, I had an allergic reaction to a medication I'm taking for my thyroid. I just started this medicine like a couple weeks ago. And this week, I decided to want to have a major allergic reaction on me. So that's why I'm in my bedroom in a jacket and a hat, trying to camouflage my redness and inflammation. So if you see me just kind of like rub my neck, nothing's wrong with me. I'm just having this crazy allergic reaction. But preferably, I'll send my endocrinologist this week and we can get another medicine going. But I wanted to do this episode. What I do with my book? This week. I wanted to talk about traumas and triggers. I read this book, It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover. If you guys can see it, try to get it into focus, but there it is. But this book, oh my gosh, was amazing. This was a TikTok made me buy it, purchase, and I'm glad that I did. And I actually ended up getting the sequel as well. I actually got that book a couple of months ago. Have been taking my precious time reading it because, of course, I'm always busy and doing something. But I made myself sit still last week. Last weekend, I was like, relax your mind, get your book, read it. And oh my goodness. I finished the book last Saturday in one night. I was almost about halfway through, but when I tell you, I felt every emotion. So not to give a spoiler alert or anything, but the book is about abuse. The character grows up in an abusive home, excuse me. And when she finds the love of her life, the trend continues. He ends up being abusive, but she had to make the tough choice, whether to stay or to leave. But in their last incident, she found out that she was pregnant, so she didn't make a decision about whether or not to leave until after, or divorce rather, until after the baby was born. But when she made her decision, she made it based off of her child. She was like, it ends with us, like the cycle will end with us. And that hit home because I wasn't in an physically abusive relationship. I will be honest, transparent. This is real life, real talk. My ex-husband and I did have one physical fight. I will say it was a mutual fight. It was like an argument that escalated, and we just both got into it. I did take pictures of the aftermath, how I looked, my bruises, the minor injuries and stuff. And I took that picture, and I still have that picture to this day, because it was a reminder to never let him or any other person, man, whomever, put their hands on me. And to this day, he has never put his hands on me again, and neither has any other man. But in my relationship, not just in my relationship with my ex-husband, even like during dating and our marriage, just a lot of times in my life, the main abuse that I have incurred is a verbal abuse and emotional abuse. Now, again, you guys remember, real life, real talk is my opinion. Anyone else that chimes in, their opinion. We just talking here. So I'm not a therapist. I'm not giving advice. I'm just giving my life experiences and my perspective on it. So I've experienced a lot of verbal abuse, majority from the people closest to me. Growing up with my dad, he was a constant in my life. He was in and out. I had to witness him raising other children, and he would treat me like he didn't know me. And one particular morning, I still remember, my elementary school was down the street from my home, and at the time, I lived on this block, he lived on that block, and he was dating a young lady that already had a daughter, and I believe they had my little brother by then. And my grandmother, his mom, worked third shift, and that particular morning, she came and picked them up and took them to the school, and they walked past me like I was a stranger on the street. My dad and I used to get into it. This was even before I became of age, just like when I got old enough to really recognized what he was doing wasn't okay, and it all started setting in, we would go to bat. I mean, we would be fussing like two grown men out in the street. And excuse me, because I always wanted that daddy daughter relationship, I would break the ice. Like, I would go periods without talking to him, then I would break the ice, try to mend everything, and try to get that relationship back together. And it just continued. It just kept going over and over until it got to a point I was like, okay, I've had enough. And by that time I had gotten older, so I was like, I don't want to have to deal with him. It's been time I've gone years without seeing my dad or talking to him. And I had moved. It was when I first moved up here. Excuse me, I have candy in my mouth because the medicine I'm taking for all of this allergic reaction has like a nasty aftertaste. So you see me like trying to catch myself because I have candy in my mouth trying to mask that taste. But so when I moved to Virginia the first time, I think his wife, from whomever she is, she found me on Facebook. It was like, your dad wants to, talk to you, this, that, and the other. So I was like, okay, you know what? Last time, I'm going to go with my motto. My thing is, if a person comes back to you, if they are the same, well, treat them as they are. But if they show you the same person and the same things, I feel like you're not obligated to deal with that person. Now, if they show you something totally different personality, everything, then fine. Treat them as they are then, not who they were. So I said, okay, by that time I had my son. My son has never seen my dad. Now his paternal grandfather is excellent. He's been a father figure to me. So my son didn't know my dad. So I was like, okay. I talked to him, laid it all out. And the only thing that he could give me was that, because at this time I left my ex-husband, started on my journey to heal, to do better, to be better. And so I asked my dad, like, just why weren't you there? Like, what was the problem with me? You were there for the rest of your children. He ended up actually raising 4 children that aren't biologically his. If you go to his social media or his wife's social media or whatever, you wouldn't even know he has 3 biological children, that those children aren't his. But nevertheless, I ended up talking to my dad. I was like, okay, so I ended up going home for something. I allowed him to meet my son. My son, just like his mother, unfazed. Because my son did start asking, like, well, where's your dad and stuff like that. Because by this time, my son was like 4. And he met him, and my son was like, okay, yeah. And just bopped on about his business. And trying to give him a second chance, I started seeing the same things again. I was like, no, absolutely not. Because now it's very much different because I have a child. And I'm not going to subject my child to this type of behavior. But my dad, like, the words that were thrown were horrible. I mean, it just belittled me as a person. And mind you, by this time, we really started having these arguments. I wasn't even 18 yet. I was probably between maybe junior high, if that, high school. But that's where it started. And the reason why I connected with the book, because how she grew up in an abusive home, she just unknowingly ended up attracting this man. And he showed no signs of it at first. Ended up attracting this man that was the exact same thing that she grew up in. Was the exact same way as her father. Unbeknown, I ended up meeting my ex-husband, who I still ended up going through some of the same stuff that I went through with my dad. The verbal and emotional abuse. He would say things like, oh, well, you never, because I'll be honest, again, real life, real talk nation, my ex-husband was like my first adult relationship and my first in a whole lot of things. So he would say, oh, well, you never been with no one else. You don't know what you want. When I would let him know, oh, well, I want you to do this. I want you to do that. And then he would, oh, well, you will never have anyone better than me, because we used to get into arguments, and I would say things like, I guess in reference to finding somebody else. And he was like, well, you can always find somebody worse. I was like, but I could always find someone better. But he and I, it was just, and it was things that he would do, like the disrespect. It's always made me feel less of a person. And the year that I left him, it was like it was like I was at my wit's end. I didn't have any more answers. Like, we were arguing. By the time I had my son, we were arguing. My son was witnessing that, and I was like, I cannot bring him up in this type of environment. It's no. So that year, I decided. A lot was going on that year. Like, 2016 was a year we decided we was gonna try it. We tried therapy. We decided we was gonna have another child. Had a horrible, long miscarriage. So now looking back, that child wasn't meant to be. We were going on a cruise with friends, and I was like, if this don't bring us back together to a good place, there's nothing else we can do. Like, I throw in the towel. We got down to go on the cruise. Unexpectedly, his mother passes away. We have to head back to Charlotte, like from Fort Lauderdale, Florida. So that took a toll on us. And things just started spiraling from there on. It was like everything was like disconnected. Like, we were just bodies in one house. And an incident occurred, and I was like, that's the last straw. So I had started planning my escape. I was like, our anniversary was coming up. I was like, I'm going to go to Raleigh. We're going to go to Raleigh. We'll drop Dez off with my mom. We'll go to Raleigh. I found like a nice little jazz spot, some restaurants. And I was actually using that trip to go and scope out Raleigh, North Carolina, because I was going to move there. I was like, it wouldn't be far from him. He could still see his son, but it'd be close to my family if I really needed someone. And that trip didn't end up happening because we got into a huge argument and decided to separate. So I took my son down to my mom, came back, packed up all his stuff. He had left the house for the weekend, and we were going to separate. My son was going to stay with my mom for a week while he left. That Monday, when I say I was at work, and we were arguing, like, low blows were thrown. Like, we were saying some stuff to each other, and I was like, this is it. I had called my sister, and she was like, well, just come up here to Virginia. Y'all, I was on a job working my dream job as an accounting associate. I was making like $22 an hour. Absolutely loved my job. I walked off my job that day. I went home, I packed my car, and I left. I haven't been back in that man's life outside of the capacity of my son's mother since that day. And I have no regrets. Not one regret, because looking back, I had to leave that. Now, no, I take it back. I do have one regret because I didn't prepare my son for what was happening. Before he knew it, we were moving to a whole new state, whole new place. Luckily, kids can adjust, but it is the one regret because my son wasn't prepared for that. And from that moment on, I've always taught every decision that I'm thinking about making with him. Yes, he's a child, but he's affected as well. So, I left. Did not look back. I came to Virginia. I got a job. Got my son in school. And it was just like the verbal abuse never stopped because the arguments would go so hard. Now, I got a mouth on me. I ain't even going to sit here and play innocent. I have a mouth on me. So, yeah, I can meet you toe to toe. But the arguments were so intense. And it was just like, I cannot raise my son in this environment. So time passes. I ended up going back to Charlotte for a year. We finally got to a point where we could co-parent. We were good. Things were okay. We could co-parent without about to knock each other's heads off. And he ended up getting with another young lady, which is now his wife. And when I moved back to Virginia, the things people say to you with no regards of your feelings, it started again. Not only was I receiving the verbal abuse from him, but I was receiving the verbal abuse from her as well. She was using things that he had told her about me and my dad relationship to throw back in my face and attack me as a mother and as a parent. It is important to heal. It is important to take care of your mental and to really address these things and deal with these things. Y'all, this thing got so ugly When I tell you it got so ugly, I had never felt so broken in my life. This was someone that didn't know me. Didn't know me, wouldn't even take the time to get to know me, even though the olive branch was extended multiple times. Would not. I welcome with open arms. I left him. I'm done. He has a responsibility to his son. That's it and that's all. This person did not know me, but when I say that experience broke me, and I didn't know I was going to get emotional behind this, but when people use words to hurt you because they're hurt, it's a feeling that's undescribable. I have felt that from so many, in more situations, from more people than I want to acknowledge. When people use their hurt and their words to hurt you, it breaks you. And in that moment, even like from my dad, from my ex-husband, I've had it out with my siblings. In that moment, I had never felt so hurt because this was someone who truly didn't know me at all. I was broken. I mean, I felt horrible. It was so bad to the point where I made it a choice to keep my son from his dad for almost 6 months until we went to court, because I needed something in place by the law to protect me and my son. And I had never, this is my first time going through this, first time being divorced, first time co-parenting. He moved on before I did, which was not a problem. And I didn't want it to be one of those situations where the new wife and the ex-wife cannot get along, because I don't hate this man, but I have nothing for him except for him to be there for his son. And for him to condone and encourage and join in on the things that were said and done, to see my baby not have to be able to go see his dad, that's never something I wanted to do. But how am I supposed to send my son somewhere when people are doing this to hurt me? So now again, I'm not innocent. My mouth will get you. If you want to start it, I'm gonna meet you. But it triggered so many things, and that let me know then that, okay, you were trying to heal, but you're not completely healed. You got some work to do. So that's why that book, when she made that decision for her child, as much as it hurt her, she had to make that decision for the betterment of her child. And I felt that because I love my son with every being in my body, but there's no way that I want him to grow up thinking or knowing that even if you're not punching me in my face or beating me in the floor, verbal abuse and emotional abuse is just as worse. It can break a person. It can break you to, you don't even recognize yourself. And that's what happened with me. So I had to take the time. Once things went to court, blew over, she and I don't have any contact at all. I mean, y'all, it was bad the way the things were going. But my ex-husband and I have gotten to a better place to where we can co-parent. I communicate with him only about my son, which was what was being done before. And even now, I only communicate if it's something that I really need him to know. Not every single thing that goes on in my son's life. I don't have time for that anymore because I am healed now. And, but I will communicate with him when it's something necessary that he needs to know or that he needs to take part of. But just like before, when we were just, casually, I would let him know it's on a need to know basis now. If this is something you need to know and I'm calling you versus texting you, or if I'm texting you something, it's something that you need to know. But going through, and not just with spouses or significant others, it can be from any type of relationship. My sister and I had a really bad argument at the end of 2020. And I went about 3 or 4 months without talking to my sister. This is my blood sister. We share the same mother. The things that were said, She's still hurt, in my opinion. She's still hurt by some things. And I feel like I'm the target. But I'm not the problem, though. Hold me accountable for anything that I have done to you. And if I have wronged you, then we'll address that. We eventually made amends. But we had a crazy, like, scream fest, like, just spewing things at each other. And this was in front of my son. She even said things about my son and to my son. And he's standing there. And, I was like, I get tired of people feeling as if they can say anything and just treat you any kind of way. And it's okay. And then when they better, they just move on like nothing happened. And they forget the words that they said. Verbal abuse and emotional abuse. Physical abuse is bad. It is. But that verbal and emotional abuse hit different. It hits your soul. Like, it makes you second guess yourself. It makes you think, what type of person am I? Like, y'all, it hurts. And it takes a lot of work and a lot of time to get over that. I won't say get over, but to heal from that. And me, if people that know me, they know my cutoff game. When I'm done, I'm done. Now, it's going to take me a minute to get there, but if you get me to the point to where I'm not speaking to you anymore, I have cut you off, don't look to come back. My friend Elizabeth used to tell me all the time, she was like, your cutoff game is crazy. I don't want any more parts of it. And as Ashley and I was talking, tissue, hold on one second, y'all. And y'all see my sign back there? Hello, gorgeous. It's supposed to have been painted a while back, but let's get back to the subject. But anyway, as my friend Ashley and I were talking about protecting our peace, it's definitely necessary to protect your peace at all costs. So now I will cut people off, or I'll step back, and because I don't have room anymore for, anything. And when that book, and I said this episode will be about trauma and triggers, because that book was a trigger for me. But I feel like when you are healed, it's easier to deal with your triggers and not let them overtake you, because been having like a rough couple of days. I had read the book, and it kind of like was starting to put me in a funk. And I was like, oh no, ma'am, we are not doing this. Get out of your feelings. And it's easier now for me to stop myself from getting in my feelings or getting into a funk because of something than it was before, because I would go through it. Like, I would get in my feelings, and it would be hard to get out. But healing from trauma is extremely important. I don't discredit anything that anybody goes through in their life, because everything, we can go through something we can go through the same thing, but it can affect each person differently. So I never discredit anything that someone goes through in their life. And I don't take the mentality of, well, just get over it. I take the mentality of, you can handle it. Like, you can heal from it. You can be able to cope with it. And maybe you can get over it, to where it's not holding you back. Now, it is going to take some work to heal from trauma, to heal from things that you have been hurt with. But it's possible, and it's necessary, because I feel like if you don't heal from stuff, you carry that over all throughout your life, and it affect people that didn't know you when that happened or wasn't a part of that situation. But because you won't heal from it, you won't take care of that issue within, it's following you everywhere you go, and it's affecting everything that you do. I had to make the conscious decision that when I became a single, and I was going to leave that man, become a single parent, and raise this child on my own, I had to do a major mind change, like a mind switch. Like, it's on go from here. Like, you are raising a young black male, and if it's the last thing you do, he's going to be a respectable young black male who knows how to treat people, um, respect people, love and respect himself as well. And I'm trying now to do as much as I can to do better by him, give him better. But there was no way I could have stayed in that marriage. Now, I grew up in a broken home, single parent. My dad wasn't there. But of course, I wanted to raise my child in a two-parent home. That's always the dream, especially when you come from a single-parent home. But there was no way on God's green earth I was going to stay in that marriage and raise that child with us fussing, arguing, like at each other's throats, like screaming matches. It was not good for him. It was not good for me. It wasn't good for any of us. And as I said, I don't regret leaving. I regret how abruptly I left, because that wasn't my plan at all. And it affected my son. He didn't know what was going on. He was smart enough to know, okay, we're moving with things are changing, but I just uprooted him from what he knew as home, like that. But I don't regret the choice to leave. I don't. I will be by myself running this race alone if I have to, before I allow that again. And I don't know, it seemed like when I look back at my life, like the major hurt that I received from people were supposed to be the people closest to me and the people that love me. But God has not let me down, I tell you that, because those relationships that I felt like I needed and were detrimental to my life, he placed other people in those roles. My ex-husband's dad, I left this man 6 years ago, almost 7 years ago. His dad to this day still considers me family, still treats me as nothing less. His daughter always, joked me about being his other daughter, but this man was there as a father figure from the time I met him to this day. So no, my dad was not in my life like I wanted him to be, but God placed someone in my life to be a father figure for me. I love my sister. I dearly love my sister, but we don't have a close relationship as I would want us to have as sisters. We have our moments where they're good, and we have our moments where it's like, okay, we didn't have enough of each other, like, go ahead. But my best friend, I just told y'all in the last episode, we've been friends for 17 years. That's my sister. We have a relationship like a sister, like the sister I wanted to grow up with, and be again. I love my sister, and then again, me and my sister have a huge age gap. We like 11 years apart. But and I love her dearly. I love her. My nephew's in my heart. Excuse me, y'all. But we just never had that relationship as you would think sisters or close sisters would have. And I don't love her any less. I love my sister. I do. And, I'm always going to be there for her, regardless of what we go through, regardless of what differences we have. But God placed my best friend in my life to be there in the capacity of a sister that I needed. Even my brother, our relationship has become, I don't know. It's different than what it was when I was growing up. But I do have a good guy friend. I met him when I was working in Charlotte. And he's like a brother to me. I can call him, talk to him about stuff. And, we have that brother-sister relationship. Excuse me, this medicine got me going crazy. To where, I feel like he's my brother. I feel like, if I need him, he's there. We need to talk about something. If I need to talk about, my special person with him, he gives me advice. Like, I could call him. We talk hours on end. Like, we have a good, I tell people, like, that's my homeboy. Like, we have a good brother-sister relationship. So even though my relationship with my brother has changed, God placed somebody in my life to fill that void. So even though I've experienced a lot of hurt from people close to me in my life, I didn't really go without what I needed though, because God placed people in my life. But I just want to say, it took a lot for me to do this episode, because you deal with some things and you feel like you're in a better place, and when you tell a story, you have to go back and revisit the events. And I think this is something that's very important to talk about. Traumas and triggers and stuff like that. Not too many people know my story of my ex-husband, and I can really go into a lot of details. That was just kind of a snippet, a glimpse of kind of what happened. But if I were to really go into details about it, it's not pretty. But it's important to talk about these things. It's important to let someone else know that you're not alone. It took me, I was with him for 10 years, and it just didn't happen within that 1 year to make me decide I needed to leave. It was ongoing. It was a snowball effect, from the time we dated off and on for 5 years into the time we were married for 5 years. But you can't really tell a person when it's time for them to leave. They have to make the choice themselves to leave. So when you see people in physically abusive relationships, mentally abusive relationships, you can't just say leave and you expect them to leave. It's not that easy. I was married. I didn't have any other image of marriage to know what to do, what not to do. So all I knew was you're supposed to try to make it work, and that's what I was doing. But it got to the point where it was too much for me, and I didn't want my son in that situation. So it was then where I was finally strong enough mentally to say, this is not okay. It's time to leave. And I left. So you can't really tell somebody when to do it or how they're feeling in it or this, that, and the other. And even now, some people can't understand. Like if you do something out of pocket or say something out of pocket, they don't understand why I don't fight every battle or go. No, I fight the battles that I need to, but I'm not going to entertain or go back to that place that I've overcome. Like I can't let him take me back. I can't keep going back. Like you know what? That's not even that big of a deal. Or, it's not worth my time. Now, the battles I need to fight, trust me, I will. But it was a lot to overcome. Even though I had started overcoming, I had a setback when we both relocated to Virginia. And we went through that ordeal. But it has gotten better, I will say. We're able to co-parent. We communicate when necessary. We have joint custody of my son. I have full physical custody. He has visitation every other weekend. So for the past 2 years, everything has been okay. It's been to the point where to where we can manage, and my son is fine. But trauma, abuse is hard. It's really, really hard. So if there's anybody out there, because it comes in all forms from all places. So if there's anybody out there experiencing, any type of trauma, any type of abuse, whether it's physical, verbal, emotional, try to get help. Try to find somebody to talk to, a friend, a pastor, if you want to go to a therapist, somebody. Talk to somebody. That's the first step to just, getting help, is to be able to talk about it to somebody and let them point you in the right direction, or, to make sure that this don't continue. I don't know if I want to say I'm thankful that I went through that, but it has made me a better person. It has allowed me to see and know the things that I won't deal with or I can't deal with again in the future. I was talking to my homeboy, one time, and I told him, I said, I don't have it in me again to overcome all that I've been through. And he's like, yes, you do. Like God made you strong enough to be able to get through it, and you can't overcome it again. I said, no. Overcoming all that I had been through up until that point literally almost took me out. And I don't have it in me again to fight that type of fight. That's why now I will easily cut people off. I will easily remove myself. Because I don't have it in me to put up another fight like I did before to save myself mentally. emotionally, physically. So you guys, don't, it's easier said than done. Trust me, I know, because I was in that position. Don't let anyone take you that far down to where you feel broken, you feel less than, you feel like you're not worth anything to anybody. That's how I felt. And you don't want to ever be in that place, because your life is precious to you and to someone else. So the best that you can, get out of it. Don't let it overtake you. Don't let it destroy you. I'm glad that God gave me what I needed to get through it and to overcome. And, you know, I'm in a better place mentally. Life still be lifing on the kid, but, I'm in a better place when it comes to that. So go read this book. It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover. I'm actually reading the sequel now. It was a really good book. The author was actually based off of her life, so she gave a little synopsis about her life afterwards. But y'all, it's not the end of the world. You will find somebody else. Um, you will. God will put people in your life to fill certain voids. So it's gonna be okay. Just get help. Leave the situation. Don't stay in it until it's too late. And remember, if no one else tells you today, I love you.